It looks like we're all here, so let's get going. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of competition for International Business Ethics Case Competition. I heard some great things about presentations yesterday, and overall, it looks like we have a very, very competitive group this year. It's a very tough competition. My name is Jim Arnold. I am your Uber judge for today. And my background is I was a professor at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis. I've been involved with IBEC for about 15 years now. And prior to being a judge, I would coach and bring teams from St. Thomas to IBEC. So I have firsthand knowledge of what it means to be here and all the work that you have put in. And we totally commend you for the time that you put in and the effort, because we know what it takes to participate in this presentation. Let's introduce ourselves today, if we would. Let's start with, I'm just going to go by school, and you can just introduce yourself, because this is the order that you're going to be speaking in today. College of Holy Cross, would three of you just introduce yourself and tell me a little about you?
Hi, I'm Nicole Simmons. I'm a freshman and I'm an economics major.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Martha. I'm a first year and I'm a math major.
Excellent, thank you. And Molly?
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm a freshman and I'm also a math major.
Ah, excellent. Well, all freshmen. That is especially commendable that when we get freshmen who are willing to take on this challenge. And probably the most important person in the room is someone that we could absolutely not do without, and that is our tech professional today, and Nick Harrington. Nick, introduce yourself and tell us a little about you.
Hi, everybody. How you guys doing today? My name's Nick. I'm the tech host for today. I'm going to put my number in the chat in just a moment in case one of you guys gets disconnected for some reason. You guys can feel free to reach out to me and we can try and work that out. I'm an undergraduate student as well. Actually, I'm a student at Virginia Tech studying engineering. So I'm happy to help out, and I look forward to listening to y'all's presentation.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Nick. As we did yesterday, I am going to read the instructions to you. Again, these were on the website and everywhere else, so I'm sure that you have read these before, but we start out every day with these so that everyone's on a level playing field. You have been called back by the company you gave your full presentation for yesterday, and you've been called back for a second visit. This group, they have asked you to speak only about ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes, and at 9 minutes, I will just hold my hand up like this so you know you only have 1 minute left, and we do cut you off right at 10 minutes, or I'm feeling generous this morning, so I'll give you an extra 15 seconds beyond that. And one weakness that in these presentations is reading directly from a script. We would want you to direct your attention to us. And also, if you would please look right into your webcam when you speak so that you are making eye contact with me. I know that can be sometimes difficult. People think that they're looking at the people on the screen and that they're making eye contact, but really you have to be looking through your webcam in order to do that. Do we have any questions at all? College of Holy Cross, you are first today. Any questions? My understanding here from your executive summary is that you are representatives of Crusader Consultants, and you are consulting with us at McDonald's. I'm a member of the board of directors today, and you will be talking to us about our animal feeding operations. What I will do is Let's see. Again, I will let you know at 9 minutes if you cross that line. And let's see here, Nick, you're going to set it to speaker view so the speaker becomes large. So that looks good. And are you ready to begin, team?
We are.
Great. Once again, welcome to IBEC. We're glad to have you here, and please begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Crusader Consultants. We are a firm that provides ESG consulting services to companies such as yourself. We've been hired by concerned citizens to present to you today. Would you sacrifice your health for cheaper chicken? McDonald's suppliers' poultry farming practices are polluting surrounding communities through waste runoff and are inflicting surrounding communities with high rates of asthma as a result of air pollution from their concentrated animal feeding operations, otherwise known as CAFOs. McDonald's is complicit in creating these externalities. Members of the surrounding communities are forced to pay the bill instead through taxes and medical expenses. They must attack the problem at its source by addressing the cause, concentrated animal feeding. This issue is fueled by the demand for lower cost chicken. This problem has an ethical dimension because McDonald's is actively opposing what is right, fair, and just, aka not inflicting rural communities with high rates of asthma and polluting their environments, and because they're exhibiting no concern for their stakeholders.
So what is a CAFO? CAFOs are concentrated animal feeding operations that raise animals at a high density to produce milk, meat, and eggs for mass consumption. And unlike AFOs, which is an animal feeding operation, CAFOs differ through size, type, and number of animals that they raise, as well as how they discharge waste, which gets into why they are bad. When considering the environmental impact of CAFOs discharge waste so that it comes in contact with the groundwater, affecting the water supply. And this is because human sewage treatment plants are required, but they don't require these plants for animal waste. And this is such a big problem because when manure is applied too frequently in one area, it can often overwhelm the absorptive capacity of the ground and have the waste runoff seep into the water supply. And it is shown that states with high concentrations of CAFOs typically experience about 20 to 30 serious water quality problems. And similarly, traces of ammonia can be found in the surface water near CAFOs, which poses a serious threat to aquatic life as it causes oxygen depletion from the water. And when also considering the health impacts of CAFOs typically have harmful gases such as ethane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide released due to the high concentration of animals and manure. And this is because CFOs typically produce between 2,800 to 1.6 million tons of manure a year. And ammonia specifically can be quickly absorbed by the upper airways of the body, causing mucus buildup, severe coughing, as well as possible scarring of the airways. And as much as 30% of factory farm workers can develop occupational asthma, acute and chronic bronchitis, and organic toxic dust syndrome because of exposure to these fumes. And when thinking specifically of chicken CFOs, CFOs in general generate more nitrogen than the federal standard, and chicken farms make up about 60% of these operations, which causes them to exceed acceptable nitrogen levels, as well as studies have shown that 25% of employees of CFOs have reported respiratory problems from overexposure to endotoxin, a high bacteria that's known to be in higher concentrations, specifically in chicken CFOs.
So there's also a current issue regarding the transparency of your poultry suppliers. On your website, it states our commitments to sourcing chickens raised with improved welfare outcomes impact more than 70% of our global chicken supply, and will be fully implemented on or before 2024. Your company does not define what quote improved welfare outcomes encompasses, nor does it specify what percentage of its US supply chain this will affect. Additionally, concentrating animal feeding operations can still exist under these quote improved welfare outcomes because they do. And McDonald's has previously refused to sign the Better Chicken Commitment, which some of your competitors already have. Your company does not have any defined or robust targets and fails to provide full transparency. The problem of CAFOs are an ethical issue because they go against McDonald's duty of care by neglecting the damages done to their stakeholders and willingly damaging them. For example, inflicting one's community with asthma as a result of business practices clearly violates duty of care. McDonald's actions in this case are not ethically defensible because they do not create any greater good, nor do they promote the general welfare. By eliminating concentrating feeding practices in your poultry suppliers and implementing full transparency, your company will be on its way to corporate citizenship by setting standards and changing the game for the fast food industry. Your company will also become significantly more sustainable, and you'll be able to right the wrongs impacting many of your stakeholders. Our proposed solution to eliminate CAFOs and implement full transparency is ethically acceptable because of the amount of benefits that will result. The environment will benefit because waste runoff and air pollution will subside. Surrounding communities will benefit from lower rates of asthma and healthier air quality overall. And management will benefit from potential marketing campaigns and brand recognition. Investors will benefit because they'll be able to attract more ESG investors, which has become increasingly important. And chickens' health will benefit from more sustainable farming practices, which in turn will lead to healthier poultry for your customers to eat. Demographically, the communities who are most affected by these CAFOs are poor rural communities in the South that tend to have less access to healthcare and less likely to have health insurance. This makes them even more vulnerable to the health risks caused by CAFOs. With this in mind, we believe that board member Lloyd H. Dean, as the CEO of a Catholic nonprofit health system, may appreciate the medical benefits that result from our proposed solution. Ethical considerations are extremely important for such a big corporation such as yourself to recognize and rectify if need be. We urge you to truly think about your supplier's current unethical practices and how many people you are affecting, whom therefore will benefit from our proposed solution.
So in conclusion, we implore you to enact this solution and to address this blatant ethical issue. Is it fair for you to impose lifelong medical condition upon the community surrounding CFOs? Is it fair for you to pollute the environment for your own personal gain? You have the opportunity to become the first entity in your industry to tackle this issue head on. You have the opportunity to use your power for good as well as your resources to enact change. And we believe you should hold yourselves, your industry, and your suppliers accountable.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will move you and where am I? Oh, there I am. And we will move you and bring in UW-Madison. Just give me, if you'll give me a couple of minutes to take some notes here.
I just want to confirm that these are the team members from UW-Madison.
Yes, I'm just going to ask you for a second if you would introduce yourselves. That would be fantastic. Christopher?
Yeah, I'm Christopher. I'm a junior at UW, and I'm studying mathematics with a minor in history.
That's a great combination. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm also a junior at UW-Madison, and I'm a pre-med student, and I'm also involved in philosophy.
Also a great thing. I have a sister-in-law that has a doctorate in medical ethics, and it's a fascinating field. And then Maya.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maya. I'm a junior studying political science and philosophy at UW.
Also an excellent combination. Let me just set my timer here. Okay, once again, welcome to IBEC, and you can begin as you're ready.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for having us back. We had a nice conversation the last time we met. I'd like to recall that at the heart of the entire food industry is a very insidious problem. Food waste is a massive cost that's just written off, tucked away in the budgets of companies, but it's done at the cost of employees, customers, business leaders, and consumers. Now, I scarcely need to remind you all at Dunkin' the impact of this TikTok video that has, shown Dunkin' Donuts employees throwing in the trash pallets of donuts, and how this has caused even more salience to be given to food waste for your company. I want to recall that our solution was a two-step process. The first step was a front-end solution where we wanted to use tracks to reduce the amount of food waste generated. And the second step was a back-end process where we wanted to reduce the amount of waste. Once we had a certain amount of waste, we wanted to reduce that amount that went to the landfill, and instead wanted to redirect it through We Compost it to composting, and through Feeding America to donations. So with all of that in mind, I want to pass things off to Alex, who's going to walk you through the ethical theory that we introduced last time.
All right, thank you. So to look at this issue of food waste at Dunkin' from an ethical standpoint, we believe it's important to first define or figure out the groups that are harmed by this issue. And the groups that we've outlined that are harmed are these customers, employees, local communities, and by extension, the shareholders who are going to lose out on money because of this bad publicity. And so we thought it was natural, as there's a bunch of groups involved, that we use stakeholder theory to address this problem of food waste. And stakeholder theory defines a stakeholder as anyone who's necessary to the success of a company. And we believe that the customers, the employees, the local communities, the suppliers, and the shareholders are all necessary for the success of Dunkin'. And stakeholder theory argues that each of these groups should be valued equally as stakeholders, and we should maximize good for each of these groups. So you may wonder, why not just think about profit? Why not focus on this profit? It's profitable, we've argued, even to tackle this food waste. Well, so since in the 1970s and 80s, this shareholder theory was the status quo, where companies would value the shareholders' interests above all else. And we see the problem with this is that companies are thinking too much on the short term. They're depending on these shareholders that they can't, and they don't know if they're in it for the long term. So while the interests of the shareholders are important for sure, it's important to think about these other groups when thinking about longevity and stability. So we believe it's important that Dunkin' addresses the concerns of the rest of these groups in tackling this issue of food waste. And we believe that stakeholder theory, it talks about giving equal say to each of these groups, and this TikTok video, this trend really gives Dunkin' a great opportunity to tackle this issue, as these concerns are clearly laid out, as the employees, they've posted these videos, throwing away these donuts, highlighting the ethical concerns with the company. The customers have interacted with these videos, spreading them all over, showing that they're not happy with this unsustainable brand. And they've commented, they've talked about how there are hungry people out there. We believe the local communities are also harmed in this process. And so we introduced our solution with our source reduction and end of day donation to benefit each of these stakeholders. And I will now pass it on to Maya to talk about local communities and employees, as well as customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So looking at these stakeholder groups more in depth and seeing how they benefit from our proposed solution, I'll first start by talking a little bit about the local communities that surround Dunkin'. So these local communities include people without a reliable source of food. According to the USDA, about 38 million people are food insecure in the US. Feeding America estimates that we throw out about 130 billion meals a year. Dunkin' could be the company leading the way to curbing food insecurity through handling this problem of food waste, as our solution outlines. The second group that we see benefiting from our proposed solution are the stakeholder group of employees. Through the implementation of the Tracks app, which is a waste auditing system, employees are provided visuals and specification about which types of food they're throwing away. This allows employees to feel as though their concerns have been heard, and Dunkin' is holding yourselves accountable. This also allows and gives the employees the ability to take personal action. And both of these things, company accountability and the ability to take personal action from our solution, result in higher employee satisfaction. And employees are a driving force, a critical component of Dunkin'. And so their satisfaction should be valued as well. The third group we'd like to talk about today are customers. We value the customer relationship at Dunkin' in terms of long-term success. You want customers who are stopping every morning to pick up their morning coffee at Dunkin' specifically. You want customers that are coming back. And in fact, 40% of consumers say that they consciously think about food waste. So reducing food waste on the part of Dunkin' would help strengthen this relationship with customers. And now Christopher will talk a little bit about the other two stakeholder groups, suppliers and shareholders.
All right, thank you, Maya. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about suppliers, because I did notice at our last the last time we met, this was sort of a major issue that you felt we kind of uncovered a little bit, and I thought it would be important to talk about it a little bit more in depth. So to sort of reiterate our claims from last time, our first couple of just ideas were, first of all, that generally to benefit suppliers, you have to have a strong environment, which would necessitate a strong supply chain, which is not, incredibly inefficient. Additionally, we thought that as Dunkin' makes a better profit margin, has benefits with these return on investment, they can send some of that money back to suppliers. So this is something that we would probably want to come back and discuss at a later time. But if you want to have transitionary payments, anything along these lines, the sort of financial benefits that we're going to get in terms of return on investment would allow these sorts of things. But this is such a large issue, I think it would necessitate a meeting at a later time. Additionally, we've done a little bit of research in the interim, and we've noticed that Dunkin' Donuts operates through a middleman known as National DCP. Now, this is a group that is basically a supplier in itself that takes from lots of smaller organizations, which are partner groups, and then distributes those through with Dunkin'. So it seems to us that the group that would be most adversely effective with supply changes would be this middleman group, whereas the small individual suppliers could shift to other distributors. So we think that it's not likely that the impacts would be most focused in developing countries. It's most likely that these impacts would be focused with this national DCP group. With this in mind, I also want to touch on shareholders, because it's important that in a stakeholder theory, shareholders are also important. I want to recall the meta study that we brought up at our previous meeting, which was this argument from Champions 12.3. Champions 12.3 looked at 40 different implementations of food waste reduction programs at different sites and had two things to say. The first thing to say was that 90% of programs had no net loss. So there's very little risk for Dunkin' Donuts when implementing a food waste policy. But additionally, the median return on investment was 7-1. The reason this is important is that if Dunkin' benefits financially, then the shareholders are happy. And we think that the shareholders necessarily will be happy with our solution. And so we think that the needs of every single stakeholder group, including these shareholders, will be met. With that in mind, I want to pass things off to Alex, who's going to talk about everything else and kind of sum everything up.
Thank you. We believe that our solution answers these concerns raised by each of our stakeholder groups and gives an advantage to Dunkin'. And not only that, not only is stakeholder theory best equipped for Dunkin's success, we believe it's the ethical way to go. We believe Dunkin' has a duty of reciprocity to each of these stakeholder groups that contribute to its success over time. And we believe that Dunkin' should implement our solution as it's the best ethical solution, and it's will lead to long-term success. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, UW-Madison. And finally, we have the University of South Florida.
I just want to confirm that these are the correct team members.
Two of you? Yeah.
Yep, just two of us.
You got it. Okay. Okay. We have two professionals here from University of South Florida. I'm going to ask each of you to just briefly introduce yourselves.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Tijen Jones. I'm a senior at the University of South Florida, studying interdisciplinary social sciences with a concentration in political science and history. And I've been lucky enough to participate in this competition for 3 years now.
Oh, 3 years. That's fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you for coming for 3 years. Julia.
Hello, my name is Julia Linkogel. I think I'm a senior. I'm not sure. I'm sure everybody else can relate to that statement. I am in the mechanical engineering department, so I am always super busy, but I've been doing this tournament also, I think, for about 3 years as well. And it's exciting to be back, even though this year was a little squished. I love this competition, so it's nice to see everybody. Hope everybody's having a great day so far.
Well, excellent. If it turns out that you're not a senior and you want to come back next year, we're going to be in Boston or Cambridge, and we are going to do it live. Come on. We've been saying this for a couple of years now, and then COVID interferes with us, but if you're not a senior, we'll hope you'll come back. Okay. We are ready to begin. So once again, welcome to IBEC, and you can begin when you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Directors at Boeing for inviting us back to speak with you today. We here at Aero Consulting recognize that Boeing is an industry leader that is known for its history and safety for as long as the brand has existed. Yet that's all starting to fall apart thanks to multiple crashes and a new documentary that has recently premiered. However, through a simple transition away from the priority being on finances, as it was with the old CEO, and instead towards a prioritization of safety, Boeing can regain its title as an industry leader. Now, this all started back in Indonesia on October 29th of 2018, when 189 people lost their lives after a Boeing 737 MAX took off and crash landed within minutes of it going up into the air. Now, originally Boeing had publicly stated that it was the pilot's fault. And after all, it wouldn't have happened if it was in America. However, later it would become to be understood that while the airline had actually asked for new training, Boeing denied that new training and insisted that it wasn't needed on this new plane, all the while adding a new system entitled MCAS. Now, the system was controlled by a tiny breakable sensor, and the pilots knew nothing about it. This would be the demise of over 189 people. However, thanks to internal documents, it is clear that Boeing headquarters knew of this issue, stated it could be fixed within a matter of weeks, and allowed for the planes to continue to fly. Then in Ethiopia on March 10th of 2019, the same type of plane took off, and within a matter of minutes, 157 people died. It was less than 5 months since the crash beforehand. And this time, once again, Boeing tried to blame the pilots. However, this time, the pilots followed the exact instructions that Boeing had given them for this situation, and they still died. Now, after all of these incidences, these planes across the world were grounded, as you know, costing Boeing a fortune. Then on February 18th of this year, the Netflix documentary entitled Downfall, The Case Against Boeing premiered, and public relations, as well as Boeing stocks, took a significant hit. Then even more recently, as of yesterday, a month ago, 132 people died on another 737 in a mysteriously similar way as the previous crashes. And this was predicted back in 2018 by the FAA, who said that this plane was likely to commit one fatal crash every 2 years. These planes were allowed to fly again in 2020, and 2 years later, we see another crash. With bad PR from the previous crashes, on top of this new one, Boeing stock and its gains have taken a huge hit. And if this crash causes more groundings, like it's already doing in China, then Boeing's reputation will be completely gone. So to get into a few more of the ethical implications, I'm going to hand it off to my partner, Julia.
Thank you so much, Tijan. As Tijan stated, it's important to remember that Boeing has a long history of being the industry leader in not only aerospace, but also innovation. Boeing's company was trusted for years as the #1 for commercial airline safety because of their dedication to safety and to the public as an engineering firm. But in the past couple of years, with changes of CEOs, Boeing has moved away from these ethical standards and has started to place profit as prioritized above safety. And this is an incredible issue, not only because, and as an engineering firm, Boeing should be dedicated to the engineering code of ethics, but also because of the people that they have underneath them that they're taking care of, especially the people that are flying these planes, as well as the pilots, both of which were ignored and are ignored whenever you prioritize profit above safety. One of the issues with the 737 MAX incidences was the fact that Boeing touted this plane as one that did not need any form of new training, while it's including a pilot software system that was critical to flight, especially when it failed. This is something that the pilot should have been informed of, and they should have included training for it, regardless of it being slightly more expensive. When you overlook these issues and try to sweep them under, it causes not only ethical issues and legal issues, but you lose lives, which is something that is not acceptable for an airline company. They also had the issue of silencing employee voices. Many employees raised concerns about this MCAS system even when the plane was in its first manufacturing processes. We can see here that Boeing, in hindsight, should have listened to these employees and should not have threatened to dock pay or firing them for bringing up any concerns about the plane. These are more ethical issues that Boeing has tried to move away from in the future, even though the past CEO of Boeing did not claim any accountability and let this plane fly even after the release of the FAA report my partner mentioned. Boeing has tried to reaffirm and reestablish its dedication to these engineering principles, specifically the fundamental canon and Boeing's own code of conduct, which states that safety shall be integrity and quality shall be held paramount and priority over profit. Boeing also has added its own line to the code of conduct in the recent years, stating that employees shall not be retaliated or punished for raising concerns. Now, saying that these things will happen is one thing. However, we can see that even though Boeing has tried to reaffirm and reestablish its position as being the trusted airline and manufacturer, we can see that there are still issues that exist within Boeing. Not only are Boeing still dealing with the legal and financial ramifications from the 737 MAX incidences, with lawsuits totaling up to over $2.5 billion in damages, as well as over 1.5 million average settlements for each family member resulting from the crash. We can see that Boeing, even with the impacts of the 2020 and the grounding of the plane due to COVID, still has not risen to the levels before, and in fact has met with a net loss over the past 3 years. This is a major issue, not just because of profit, because of the origin of why Boeing has not risen to those levels. And that is because the quality assurance and inspections are still not at the previous levels they were within Boeing. This issue of catching problems before the planes leave the manufacturing facilities is not just with the 737 MAX. Instead, the 747 and the 787 Dreamliners have also faced structural damage. In fact, the FAA has grounded 8 of these planes in the summer of 2021 because of structural damages coalescing in places that could result in catastrophic failure of the planes. This is a major issue, and it's one that Boeing has attempted to fix by replacing inspectors with digital technologies to become more accurate and provide more accurate parts and readings on the planes. But unfortunately, removing that human factor has backfired and has resulted in millions of dollars of production issues because of the issues keep compounding within the planes currently. It's important and imperative that Boeing continue to place safety first. And unfortunately, firing inspectors and quality assurance officers isn't the direct route that Boeing should take. Instead, by placing safety first and by making sure that we include these people in the process and hire more inspectors, this is part of the greater solution that will help Boeing become not only dedicated to safety, but also a more trusted among the public and airline companies as a whole. And more about this ethical future, I will hand it off to my partner, Tijen.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's very clear that Boeing's public image has drastically dropped, and the recent plane crash indicates that the changes that were tried aren't working. It's clear that the priorities need to change. And instead of finances being a priority, as it was with the old CEO, and started to intensify with competition with Airbus, the priority needs to be on safety first. And this can be implemented through 2 simple steps. First of all, internal, and second of all, external change. First, with internal change. While this does sound drastic in nature, really there's just a few simple things that Boeing can do, such as allowing mechanics and engineers to express their concerns freely, as well as rehiring quality assurance people who were fired earlier, as my partner was mentioning. Now, these were products of this old prioritization of at speed and not actually on safety and instead on finances. And so people who saw debris and loose wires who could affect the plane midair were fired for saying anything. And what this indicates is that it's not just a problem with the 737 or the Dreamliner, but instead it's possibly a problem with all Boeing airplanes because employees aren't allowed to say anything that's wrong with the planes. Now, finally, for external changes, really all Boeing needs to do is admit to the problem. Internal documents from Boeing already state that Boeing knew it was a problem and still did it anyway. That came out in the congressional hearing, and now the public knows. But Boeing hasn't officially apologized or admitted to the problem. And multiple studies, such as a study in the Journal of Business Research back in 2020, stated that there is a 22% more of a likelihood for consumers to come back even after a major incident if they just apologize, even over financial compensation. And also, finally, Boeing needs to recognize and officially apologize to the victims' families. There are 478 people who have died in these crashes. And not only are these ethical problems at stake, but these simple changes can reduce the legal liability as well as extremely costly groundings that started in China. Thank you.
Okay. You came in right at the wire. Good timing. I can tell that you rehearsed that. Very good, everybody. I'm going to make just a couple of global comments here that hopefully will be helpful and at least a little bit interesting to you. There were 4 major things that I was looking for, and all 4 of you covered the bases. Number 1 is the concept of interests, and that is who has an interest in this particular situation. There are any number of people that are interested in the situation at hand and the situation at the outcome. Number 2 would be rights. Who has rights here? Not just beyond interests. Who has rights? Maybe they're legal rights. Maybe they're just assumed sort of rights. And once you identify the interests, you can take a look at the rights. But number 3 is duties. And duties, what sort of a duty does this company, this organization have to society beyond just what is legally required? And then number 4 would be virtues. Again, everybody covered that. That is just the simple things of being a good person, being a good citizen, being a good corporate citizen. What are those virtues and the values that we have as human beings to maintain a dignified society? Now, as I said, each one of you covered them, and there were some especially good examples. Holy Cross did a really nice job with duties, and that is the duty to protect people from being sick. I think we can all agree that we do have a duty to not harm and not cause sickness. And that was a really good example. Now, looking at interests, those people that have an interest in the outcomes, UW-Madison did an excellent job with that. You went through all the stakeholders, customers, shareholders, employees, hungry people, suppliers, value chain. That's the kind of thing that it's important to look at all the time with an ethics issue, because there are always easily identified stakeholders, but there are often stakeholders that are not so easily identified. You have to really think through, because sometimes what's hidden and is not so obvious to you is going to be a stakeholder or an interest holder that will really help determine and tip the scales in a certain way. University of South Florida, really nice list of virtues, good example of virtues. And that is virtues. How about lying? How about honesty? How about gaslighting? All of these things that, and blaming, all of these things that we can consider in our personal and professional lives to just be plain wrong. And you really put forth good examples of what can happen when organizations just out and out lie and cover up and try and gaslight people. And that's a huge issue for Boeing. One of the things that all of your presentations had in common is that you were operating with large corporations. And there's, of course, an overall question: what role do the large corporations play in our society? And what can we expect from them? And it continues to show up every day in the news. I would say the number one company that is being looked at and complained about in that area right now, you probably know what I'm going to say, is Amazon. Huge corporation, affects just about everybody else, everybody in the world, from suppliers to consumers to employees, everybody. What is it that we can expect from large corporations? And so by breaking things down this way, looking at the interests, looking at the rights, the duties, the virtues, you start to get a picture of how it is that we come to decide that corporations have a certain role in society. I really enjoyed these presentations, and Nick and I were talking earlier about how much we enjoy learning from each one of you. We all learn, you all bring new information, and we certainly appreciate that. What's going to happen next is judges will talk, and we will be looking at some of the things that we've talked about here. And then, of course, you have one more presentation that's going to be due a little bit later today, and that's before that will be before you go out for virtual happy hour. And that will be, of course, your 92nd. So you have two behind you, and everyone did just a great job. Everyone did a great job yesterday. It's a very tough competition, and we really thank you for taking part. As I said before, and I said this last year, and the universe made a liar out of me, and that is that we do want to meet live next year, and it will very likely be in Boston or Cambridge, which in some ways is our headquarters now. And for those of you who are not seniors, I hope that you will come back and see us again. If you are graduating, congratulations. And we hope that you will go back and talk to the people that are involved and promote IBEC. Because we are more than a competition, we are a learning opportunity, and that's what makes us the premier ethics competition in the world, according to many sources that have reviewed us. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer for you at this juncture? Okay, one final thank you for being part of IBEC. I will let you go now. Thank you to Nick, our technical representative. Have a wonderful day and good luck in your final presentation.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to all the teams.
Thank you.
Thanks.